We believe that privacy enhancing technology is one answer. It is at least a major piece part of the answer to that. And so privacy enhancing technology in its simplest form is really based on the concept of versus in days of old, we would have said, give us as much data as possible. And that's how we're going to improve predictability and accuracy. Well, privacy enhancing technology really flips that on its head and says, what's the least amount of data that I need in order to provide highly predictive, highly accurate, highly secure responses?
Dondi Black, Chief Product Officer at TSYS, shares her insights on leveraging generative AI to drive innovation in the payments industry, highlighting its practical applications, privacy-enhancing capabilities, and how cultural transformation empowers teams to foster inclusive and measurable progress.
Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of the Leadership Exchange. My name is Tracy. You can follow me on Twitter at LadyLeet or on LinkedIn at TracySLeet. And I'm so excited to be hosting Dondi Black here today, which we met at FinTech South very recently. What a great conference.
It was.
I know, it was so amazing. And for those of you who don't know Dondi, she is the Chief Product Officer for the issuer business inside of Global Payments. So welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yes, it's an exciting time to be alive. There's so much happening. I feel like, what is it? We're in 2024, but it's this whole idea of we're finally out of COVID and exciting things are finally happening in our lives. And you have been doing so much related to transformation inside your business. And I'm really excited to talk to you about that today.
We are, it seems like this business, I've been in payments, Tracy, for more than 3 decades. And I guess in some cases, you could say payments is just the business of transformation. I think, I'm at a really exciting point in my career right now where I sit inside of an organization that obviously we touch the payment ecosystem globally, literally around the world, and on both the issuing and the acquiring side. And so as we go through a transformation, it feels a little bit different for me this time than maybe other places I've been, because this transformation is all about synergies. It's all about not only investing in new types of innovations, but also finding, really creative ways to just function better, operate inside our organization together in different ways, in new ways, create some synergies and some efficiencies. And so it's touching every aspect of our company. It's touching every single team member in some way. And it's a very exciting position that I get to be in to really lead the product organization through this effort.
I love that. You speak so passionately about it, and that's so amazing. This idea of empowering people too. I know you're really big on empowering people, and I know you've talked previously about kind of uniting people under a North Star. So when you talk about implementing this sort of cultural transformation on a day-to-day basis, how are you all measuring success?
That is a phenomenal question, because I tell you, you can have the greatest North Star vision in the world, but if you don't know how to measure success, or you haven't stopped to give equal time and equal measure into defining that, my experience, you may find that you stray way off path. And so I think one of the most exciting and pivotal things that we've done is, as we have identified, number one, we've got that North Star. Where are we going? What is it specifically that we're trying to achieve? And then we've been able to tailor that down into different business segments. So for me, I work on the issuer solution side of the business, and more specifically in product. And so we just keep fine-tuning. So if you think about what transformation looks like for a product organization, it may be net new products. It may be enhancements to existing solutions. It may be that we are going to really anchor ourselves to new strategic partners or find new ways of distributing our solutions. Any number of those things are a transformation in and of themselves. And so as we set about building business cases, and that really kind of anchors yourself to what's your definition of success, we then took the extra time at the very front of the process and said, what are our KPIs? How are we going to measure this? How will we know if we are being successful? And not waiting until we've invested the money and we're at the finish line to do a look back, but what are those key things that we need to be measuring and tracking success along the way? Making sure that there's transparency. Who owns each piece of this? Who are our critical stakeholders? Because you can't do this in a silo either. We're a really large organization with our clients are very often our internal partners. And so we have to make sure that we're being very thoughtful and inclusive about bringing them on this journey with us. And so it's defining what are those objectives and key results, those OKRs that we're kind of striving for, but then putting those kind of key performance indicators every touchstone along the way. And so we've established a series of milestones. For example, every single one has a date. When is it going to start? How long should that take us? So if we start to get behind, we're going to know it at the earliest possible juncture and be able to escalate and get support and help when we need that.
I love that, because that turns something that comes from the leadership. A lot of times you hear things at the leadership level and it's very grandiose, but then the question is, okay, but how does that actually translate down to the organization? So being able to see that and take very actionable steps towards that is an awesome way to approach that. Yeah. And how do you empower kind of like every individual within that organization to feel like they're actually contributing to that goal?
I love that. You jumped right where I wanted to talk about next. So I think the great thing is we have so many things to do. If you think about what I just went through, if you take any one of those scenarios and you start to put an execution plan against that and milestones against that, one person can't do that. 5 people can't do that. It is requiring us to reach into the organization deep. And so we've got phenomenal ideas coming from everywhere. And it's really bringing everyone on this journey together and at the same time. And so we're learning from each other. We're sharing information with each other. It has given people that maybe sit inside of my organization, some of them are individual contributors who aspire one day to be people leaders. This is actually a great foundation for them to start to lead and lead by influence and start to practice things that are going to be critical as a good leader around communication, not just written communication, but oral communication. How effectively can you articulate a vision? How impactful can you be in terms of holding people accountable, holding yourself accountable? What does that look like? Fail fast, recognize when you fail. What did you learn from that? Go again. And so just the absolute rigor and the pace of what we're doing necessitates that really every team member in our organization is on this journey with us. And so if you think about the issuer business, this is thousands of employees and team members, colleagues around the globe that are all really working towards this North Star. And we all own our piece of it, but we all know what our piece is contributing at the end of the day. And so it's really exciting to be able to do this. And I think it really is going to open up a lot of opportunities for people to grow into their own leadership position, mature as a leader. I think it's going to help some people to recognize maybe new areas of the company that they hadn't really thought about. They're going to get exposure to some new things and they may identify a new passion that they have. And so I am very excited about just the simple exposure, just that, the active exposure that it gives our team members to so many other facets of the company and so many other stakeholders in the company that they otherwise might not interact with on a day-to-day basis.
Can you share any specific examples where you've seen any unexpected innovation or solutions come out of what you all have been doing?
Well, we are in such an early phase. And I tell you, you're kind of getting me to geek out here when I start to, because this is what I do all day, every day, and I love it. I'll tell you one of the most exciting areas that we're spending a lot of time on is fraud and risk in the fraud and risk sector, specifically generative AI. There are so many places across the organization where we can deploy generative AI. There are some places we should. There are other places we may make the calculated decision that that's not the right place for us. But if I think about specifically some of the things that get me really excited in the issuer space that we're doing as a part of this transformation, it really is getting to some of those practical applications of generative AI, where it's a very pragmatic, it's being leveraged to address a need that's not being met in the market today, or is being met, but maybe in an inferior way. And, this is one of those technologies where there's a lot of things that people love to talk about that have a lot of sex appeal and sizzle, but they might not have an ROI. And that's the business that we are in. And so it's really critically important that we be thoughtful and we be practical when we think about investing in these technologies. And security always has to be top of mind. So as we looked at generative AI and where we felt like we had the right use case to deploy this, where it absolutely met all of those objectives, the fraud and risk space really kind of rose to the top for us. And so we've got a number of things that we're doing right now around developing some models for portfolio risk management, for scam detection, and some new, I think probably far more innovative and advanced fraud modeling that leverage generative AI. So I'm really excited about those. And I'm speaking in generalities. That actually covers multiple kind of solutions that are all in the hopper for transformation at this moment.
That is so exciting. So, do you feel like it's a trend? You talk about security with AI, and I feel like every time we talk about AI, we also talk about security. So, do you think that security budgets are also kind of increasing with the AI budgets increasing as well? Do you see them increasing together?
We do. So if we look at across the industry and where do we see there actually being, investments and appetite to invest continue to be made and in innovation, there's a few areas that really surface as having a pretty strong CAGR going out the next 3 to 5 years. So certainly fraud and risk is one of those. Data and analytics is the other. And so those are probably the two top categories where we see issuers continuing to have an appetite to invest. We certainly see a lot of innovation continuing in that space. So I think I don't see any signs that that's going to slow down anytime soon. Every time there's new form factors or there's new channels, or the more that we move into embedded payments, the reality is one size does not fit all when you talk about fraud solutions. And that is where generative AI really can be a game changer, because it allows you to look across broad and vast sets of data and to react to that data by having it refreshed continually versus a rules-based model that would need to be, matured in some fashion and then kind of updated. It's always a look back. This allows us to always be looking in the moment and even looking ahead in some cases. So I think it's going to be really transformative. And I think that's why we're going to continue to see the investment in that space over the next few years.
Yeah, it's really good that both are keeping up, right? Because if the fraud detection could not keep up with the AI and the new scams that are coming out, then I think we would have a big problem. So it's
That's
nice
right.
to hear that the payments industry is staying ahead of the game for that. Um,
Absolutely.
so you all are doing so much over there, and we've talked a little bit about the fraud aspect of things and kind of where you all are investing in AI and where the industry is investing in AI. But are there any specific emerging technologies or approaches you're kind of excited to implement in the next few years on your journey?
I think that along with generative AI, we are looking to leverage privacy enhancing technologies in some new ways. So I think that we are in a very interesting position in the ecosystem. I mentioned before, as a global payments company, we obviously service thousands of merchants and retailers, acquirers around the world, as well as issuers. And so by really leading the space on both sides, that creates some very unique opportunities for us. There's some natural synergies, but there's also always top of mind privacy and security and data rights. And this is an area that we see changing and evolving very quickly. It's one that we continue to monitor very aggressively on behalf of our clients, because there's a lot of regulation, there's a lot of oversight, and candidly, there's a lot of regulatory change on the docket for the next few years to come. And so if you think about that, how do you start to actually take advantage and leverage, access those synergies, but also do that in a way that is very mindful and thoughtful around data privacy and protection? We believe that privacy enhancing technology is one answer. It is at least a major piece part of the answer to that. And so privacy enhancing technology in its simplest form is really based on the concept of, versus in days of old, we would have said, give us as much data as possible, and that's how we're going to improve predictability and accuracy. Well, privacy enhancing technology really flips that on its head and says, what's the least amount of data that I need in order to provide highly predictive, highly accurate, highly secure responses? Responses that can be used for fraud, responses that can be used for authentication or validation, any number of applications there. But I think that when we kind of think about how do we start to unlock some of those synergies that exist even within global payments, I think privacy enhancing technology is a piece of that. When I think about how do we bring new players into the ecosystem and protect our issuers, and protect their cardholders, us, right? I think privacy enhancing technology, again, becomes something that the industry is quickly going to need to test and learn and adapt and think about where are all of the possible applications for that type of technology in order to continue delivering experiences that are transformative and that are differentiating and that are exciting, but also secure. So
I love that. And there is definitely a lot of momentum. I mean, I feel it. And, tons of things are happening within the industry right now. And it's an exciting time to be alive. But what is y'all's plan for making sure that momentum doesn't lose traction, I suppose, once the initial excitement fades? Have you guys thought about that at all?
the excitement of the transformation.
Excitement about AI, excitement about, the fraud stuff, excitement about the just everything that
I'm
you're
with you.
doing.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
so I would say this is where, again, we stand on our legacy very proudly. Sometimes people think legacy has a negative connotation. I think it actually is incredibly empowering, because what our legacy says to me is that our job, the industry looks to us to look beyond the hype curve and to be able to identify what innovations are going to be transformative versus be a lot of sizzle, have a lot of excitement, generate a lot of buzz, and then just kind of die a slow, quiet death until the next big thing comes on the scene.
Right, right.
And, that's our role. That's the role we play. And so, I don't really have concerns about our ability to kind of maintain that. Our role is really to be ahead of the momentum, and in front of that, and really bringing forward to our clients, being a thought leader to the industry and saying, this is what we see as transformative. This is why we believe is transformative. This is why we're investing in this. This is why we're choosing the partners that we're choosing. And, I think a good example of that, I had the opportunity recently to join tens of thousands of our colleagues in this industry in Las Vegas at Money 2020 US. And it was interesting to me. I believe this was my 8th or 9th consecutive Money 2020 that I have attended. And what I observed is that is very often a show where you see a lot of splash. You see a lot of sizzle. It is whatever is kind of the big hype at the time. That is not what I saw in 2024. What I saw in 2024 was actually very sobering and a return to a very pragmatic, thoughtful approach. So we saw issuers and we saw technology providers and we saw processors like ourselves coming to the table and talking practically about real life applications of this technology. How you leverage this kind of technology at scale, what are the risks that you need to be aware of. And so I thought it was actually really nice to see the industry almost catch a breath and return to this kind of pragmatic posture and say, can we all really just talk about this is no longer a technology looking for a problem, but what are the problems that a technology can solve, and kind of leading with that. And so it was really nice to see.
I love that. And that's definitely where the industry needs to move, right? And especially with everything going on, AI and all the hype and just keeping up with everything, you see different parts of the curve. And I love
That's
that
right.
we're kind of going back a little bit down and saying like, okay, what are the practical use cases? Let's stop hyping. Let's actually
That's
get
right.
practical here and use it, and can we actually use it? Because that's where it's actually going to truly transform business.
Well, and I think I want to see people get really comfortable. This is a lot of what I have the opportunity to do with the team that I lead inside of the issuer business for product. It's recognizing that not all innovation has to be this big unicorn, right? There's all types of innovation that can be transformative for us as a company, for our clients, for the issuers that look to us to be their partner. Those efficiencies, I mean, those innovations can deliver efficiencies. That is critically important. It's not just the revenue side of the balance sheet, but it's being the partner that brings forward innovations that really speak to the needs that issuers have on both sides of their balance sheet. And so, innovations in operating models, innovations in efficiencies, innovations in new solutions that drive revenue or open up new markets. That is what gets me excited, which brings me, I guess, back full circle to why this transformation that we are embarking on is so important to me, because it really touches on all of that. And it's this recognition that great ideas, great insight can come from absolutely anywhere. They don't just sit inside the product organization. They don't just sit at the C-suite level. They don't just sit inside of an operations call center. And so it's recognizing that innovation comes in many, many forms. It wears many, many faces. And we are opening ourselves up to make sure we're getting that in from all over the enterprise.
I love that, because your title, Chief Product Officer, doesn't. I guess I would not guess that you're talking so much about transformation. And what I hear from you, right, is a lot of conversation around what it means to be an inclusive organization. And I just had another leadership podcast done with a fellow chief member, and she talked a lot about DEI efforts and things like that. But what it really boils down to is, how do you create a more inclusive environment to foster more of the culture of innovation that you're talking about? So it's amazing how those two and what you're saying really kind of go hand in hand.
They absolutely do. The reality is that when we have a diverse workforce, we get diversity of ideas, because everyone is bringing a diverse perspective to the table in terms of what is the need that needs to be met, or how we might, meet this need. And I think that the beauty, again, of going through a transformation at the scale that we are, where it's more than just a transformation in a product organization. It's more than just a transformation in operations. Or technology. It really is. I think you said at the beginning, a cultural transformation. That is so true, because the reality is that this is going to expose so many team members to new opportunities to bring their voice to the table, surface those ideas. And guess what? If you've got a great idea, there's a good chance you're going to get tapped on the shoulder and asked to own that idea and lead that idea. And so that's really, really exciting to me. And so I think that while it may not be the primary purpose, I think that when an enterprise goes through this type of transformation, a very fantastic byproduct of that is exposure and access that, can only serve equity inside of an organization to people of all backgrounds. And it gives people a platform to really kind of speak to what is the value that they bring to the table. And when you do that, what happens is you start to actually unravel bias that may exist inside of a workplace. Unintentional, bias sometimes, but projects like this have a way of exposing those, and then giving us an opportunity, all of us as individuals, to break that down.
Yes, and I know you are a big proponent of self-advocacy. So what advice would you give to somebody who might be struggling to advocate for themselves, or raise their hand up and give an idea?
So you and I've talked before, and you asked me about, advice I would give someone. And so I want to start there, because this has just always been true for me. And I think what I said to you then, I won't say it exactly, but it will be something along the lines of, don't sit in the corner and wait for someone just to notice you're doing a great job. Self-advocacy is so important. but it is not lost on me. It is also incredibly, incredibly hard. For some of us, that is not a skill that is taught. That is not a skill that is actively cultured and developed. And so if you are fortunate, you may find yourself with a phenomenal mentor, coach, leader who is able to draw some of that out in you. But the reality is that self-advocacy is not boasting. And I think for a long time, and I'll just speak in my own experience, I held myself back. There was that, I didn't necessarily understand that line between when does it, I think my intent is self-advocacy, but what comes out sounds like boasting, or I worry that it's going to be judged as boasting. And so recognizing there's a difference. And the difference is really in intent and in focus, and very often in tone, right? So self-advocacy really is speaking to the value you bring against a larger goal, very often a collective goal. So in my current situation, an example, my company is leading this transformation, and this transformation is going to drive revenue. It's going to drive efficiency. Self-advocacy is that I am leading a global product organization. And out of that global product organization, we are going to deliver more than 30 new initiatives into our issuer business that are going to drive new solutions. They're going to allow us to enter new markets. They're going to allow us to deploy our solutions in new ways. We're going to introduce new technologies and new solutions. And I have the opportunity, the benefit of leading an incredible team and ensuring that we are measuring our success every step along the way, and that we are going to be successful in driving growth for the business X%. That's self-advocacy. Boasting, in comparison, far more personal, far more me. It's not necessarily tying that to the larger objective of the group. Boasting would probably look more like, I'm leading 88 people, and I made sure that we got this done on time and that done on time. And I want this when I get to the finish line. I mean, there is very much a difference of intent and focus. And so I think recognizing that self-advocacy is on tying your own value to the outcome, to the success, to the greater good, very often to a team. And that's the difference. I think it's really important to do that, not only for yourself, but for others. People are watching. People are always watching. And you never know that when your self-advocacy is going to be the one thing that someone witnesses, and it gives them the nudge that they needed to do that for themselves. It has a way of being contagious in the best possible way.
That is very true. That's one of my favorite things to do. Sometimes I wish I could just go into an organization and go walk around and talk to people and just say, oh, this person's doing this person's doing that, because it can become so inspiring, right? Sometimes everybody just needs a cheerleader to help them realize
Absolutely.
the amazing things that they're able to do. And it's hard. It's hard when you work in a large organization to get that and to be able to surface that. So,
Yeah. And I think for leaders, one of the best things that we can do when we're in the very fortunate position of having team members that do look to us for guidance, for direction, for consistency, I think one of the best things that a leader can do is give honest and transparent feedback. That's how you empower someone to self-advocate. So not just saying you did really great this quarter, but specifically, what was it that they did this quarter? I really appreciate the way you stepped up and you picked this up. And I know you helped this person along the way. You communicated this really effectively. I know this was a challenge, but I saw you also come to the table with a solution. I want to see more of that for you. So calling out the very specific things that represent that success and letting them know, like, these are the things that when you self-advocate, these are the things that you want to lift up. So I think as leaders, that's an imperative. That's one of our biggest jobs. And unfortunately, what we know is that females and people of color are less likely to get honest, candid, and direct feedback. It's hard. If it were easy, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation. So I think it's incumbent upon any of us that have the responsibility of leading teams to always give that honest, direct, and transparent feedback.
Yes, I love that. Well, I wanted to take a quick second to thank our sponsor, This Dot, which is my company. We are experts in modern web development and consulting. So if you're looking to scale up your dev teams or need assistance turning some innovative ideas into reality, we've been doing a lot of AI proofs of concept lately, but we have you covered. So we don't just build software, we love building partnerships as well. And we tend to collaborate closely with teams to help understand the unique challenges and craft tailored solutions that drive real results. So check us out, thisdot.co. That's THISDOT.co. And thank you so much to my team for being able to sponsor this episode and support the community as well. And Dondi, you have provided us with so much amazing thought and feedback. Thank you so much. Where do we find you online if we want to learn more?
I am certainly on LinkedIn. So Dondi Black on LinkedIn. I am also on Twitter. So you're welcome to find me there. I try to be very thoughtful and share the great things that we're working on inside of the issuer solutions business, inside of global payments, as well as share just what are those perspectives on things that are playing out across the industry. What are some of those emerging opportunities that I see? Again, more than 3 decades in this industry, as both a processor, an issuer, a user. I've worn many hats. And so I try to always be thoughtful as I'm sharing in any channel that I bring that perspective to the table.
I love that. Okay, well, I just followed you on Twitter, so now we're friends on Twitter.
Excellent.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. Hope you all enjoyed this episode, and we will see you all next